up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright. I am joined by Mr. William Monroe. How you doing, Will?
Doing well, Steve. Doing well. We are past the very first game. We've had just this last Thursday. We had our Hall of Fame game. Always so excited just to see football back, and then you realize how bad that game usually is, and why you're not usually excited for it. But never fails every year. I still get excited for it just because it's football.
So that was, can I find the stat? That was the most watched Hall of Fame game since 2018.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if people saw Jets and were thinking Aaron Rodgers.
Although he was heavily featured. I don't know if you saw it all. He was, I think it was almost like the whole fourth quarter. I feel like third quarter, they had him on the broadcast was talking to him about his transition there and everything. Yeah. It was pretty cool hearing him.
Nice.
Apparently he called a lot of the plays that when Zach Wilson was the quarterback, he was calling plays. Pretty interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. That's fun. So yeah, I did not watch it. I never watch it really.
No.
Like you said, it's not great.
No, it isn't. But with less preseason games, it's it comes up, I guess later technically, right? Or do they have we don't have a week off between week 3 and the regular season,
I don't think
right?
so. Yeah, I think it is later because if memory serves, it was usually like late July. I thought it would be.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess people are ready for some football.
Yeah, I was actually down at the Eagles training camp last night. They had their open practice at Lincoln Financial Field, so I was able to see some live football. Be out in the crowd with some fans. So it was a good time. It made it feel like football season truly is right around the corner.
Nice. Well, it is. It is. Our draft is what?
Just 3.5 few weeks away.
Yeah, it won't be long, man.
Yeah,
4 weeks.
Yeah, coming up on the 1st, right?
Yeah, something like that. 1st, 2nd.
Yeah,
I think it's the 1st.
So it'll be 1. Yeah, 3 weeks from this week, from this Friday.
Yeah, I need to do more mocks.
Yeah, got to get on it.
Got to figure out the strategy. Yeah.
I am still trying to figure out what pick I want.
Yeah, I don't. I really got to just sit and play with these strategies and figure out what I want to do.
Yeah,
it's
I don't know
tough.
because I know you and I think we both forgot about it, but I'm sure we were looking. I don't know if we brought it up here that our main league together, we have a consolation bracket where the winner of the consolation bracket gets to choose their draft spot in the next year's draft. And it ended up being you versus me in the consolation bowl this year.
Yeah, that's something to really brag about because that meant both of us missed the playoffs for the first time ever.
Yeah, it meant we were both well positioned for a playoff run had we made it.
Yeah, indeed. What a shame,
but it is nice to reward the teams that are preparing and playing into it, and then you have something you can work toward even when you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Still continue to look.
Yep, little strategy that you can implement in the draft, and something to play for.
Exactly.
And now today, Will, we got a 14-team PPR. Promised this last week. Moving forward, we'll do a 12 next week, then a 10, and then another 12, and then we'll be done on that front. But we got a 14-teamers. Got lots of people out there playing 14-team leagues, so we got a long one today. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's get into it. These ones are always going to be interesting and always tough. We do the 10-team leagues, and you love your team. This one, usually not so much.
Yeah, indeed. This is going to be tough. So we'll get it started. I am in the 3. Will is in the 8. Justin Jefferson and Austin Eckler go off the board with the 1 and 2, and I am going to go with Mr. Christian McCaffrey.
Calling it easy.
Yeah. I mean, in a 14-teamer, your running backs are going to be even slimmer. I can find another wide receiver somewhere else, but I'm going to definitely want to lock in a premier running back up front. I'm not playing around with any of the wide receiver strategies or Kelsey or any of that in a 14-teamer. So we locked them in. Cooper Kupp goes, Jamar Chase, Travis Kelsey, Bijan Robinson. There we go with the 107. You are up.
Yeah, it's interesting because outside of those first 2 running backs and maybe Bijan, if you're want to kind of take that gamble, I just don't love a lot of the guys that are here, especially here in a full PPR. It really lends itself to the receiver position. So I'm going to go with the receiver in Mr. Tyreek Hill. Diggs is tempting as well, but I think when you see the two, I feel like you look at them and you assume, Tyreek maybe gets hurt more because of PPR. But it's interesting looking at his last 3 years. He actually was, benefited. He increased. He was number 3 position rank in standard leagues and number 2 position rank in PPR. So it did actually only help him, surprisingly. And he does catch a lot of balls. I feel like at first glance, he was someone that maybe you think gets hurt, compared to other receivers. But this is going to be interesting because looking at what I anticipate to be there in the next round, I don't love a lot of the running backs. So this could be an interesting exercise here of not going running back in the first couple rounds in a 14 team and really seeing how you feel about it because it is tough. But we only need to start 2 there and then, can start 1 more in the flex. I'm going to go ahead and get Tyreek. Patrick Mahomes goes next. A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Nick Chubb, Saquon, and CeeDee Lamb round out the round. Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard all go off the board for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So definitely a load of running backs going. The top on the board for running back would be Stevenson, Breece Hall, Najee, Etienne by ADP. I don't think I could take them over some of the other positions here. Looking at wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave. So some solid options there. One that I'm actually more interested in here is possibly taking the shot on a Mark Andrews. As we know in these types of leagues, if you don't get the top, couple tight ends, you might as well wait till the end, but there is a pretty big positional advantage to have that. So I kind of want to see what a team's going to look like building around him. So, while I may go, usually with a Garrett Wilson, Waddle, maybe not here, but Waddle because I have Tariq, or like an Olave. I'm going to see if I can take a shot here with Mark Andrews, see how this looks, and see what kind of gets back to me here. Anything you're hoping for getting back to you at the end of the second round here?
Yeah, it was Mark Andrews. Well, I was literally looking at the ADP, like, well, two people would have to jump above him for it to fall to me. Probably won't happen. And then as soon as you started talking, I was like, damn it, this he's going to say Mark Andrews. So no, I don't. Maybe I would look to grab a quarterback, Allen or Hurts, if they fell to me, but that's asking for a lot for them to get to me. So
yeah,
maybe,
I'm surprised not more of them didn't go actually.
Yeah, same. Usually you see another one go. So yeah, we'll see.
A chance.
Maybe Stevenson. He'd probably be the realistic one that I'm looking at.
Yeah. All right, so locking in Mark Andrews, there goes Jalen Hurts, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, and Josh Allen right before you.
Yeah.
So really, reeled you in there on that one.
Yeah, it almost happened. So there's really no advantage for me to play at the turn because we're only a round in and one team's got a running back and one's got a wide receiver. So kind of balanced on that front. The one, I don't want to say one because it's probably not fair, but like I'm looking at the wide receivers, Olave, Higgins, Devonta Smith. I'm happy with all of them. DK Metcalf. Where at the running back position, like I like Stevenson a lot. Hall, I just don't think I'd like him this early given the injury. Najee solid, and then there's a tier break before ETN. So I'd rather lock in my running back, and that's going to be Stevenson. Kind of worried about the Zeke news with New England. There's some flirting going on there, so that could be a problem, but for now, that does not exist. So we're going to lock in Mr. Ramondre Stevenson. Give myself 2 running backs to start. Olave goes, T. Higgins goes, Devonta Smith goes. So 3 of the wide receivers I liked, and then Breece Hall, and I'm back on the board. So probably looking at a DK Metcalf, but we'll take a look here at the other positions. We do still have Najee. I could start with 3 strong running backs in a 14-team league. That would be nice, but probably kind of a luxury. DK Metcalf, Debo, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper. Metcalf is the tier break to me. I mean, you can argue that Debo's in there, but I'd probably put Metcalf a bit above. And then tight end, not super interested in taking a shot there. So just going to lock in Mr. Metcalf, get not balanced, but get my first wide receiver there. I've got a long time to wait, so I don't want to wait too long to get my first wide receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs goes off the board. Joe Burrow, Deebo Samuel, and Najee Harris. You're back up.
Yeah, I was looking at Gibbs because I assumed ETN and Najee would go. So ETN still sitting here is pretty attractive at this point in the draft, third round. But we're looking at 28, 36 picks in, something like that, something along those lines here. So solid. The other running back that I would be considering would be Joe Mixon. Been rising on him. I think there still is maybe a little bit of legal issue out there. Something else that I saw, but it doesn't seem like there's really anything going to be happening there. And given that they really haven't brought anybody else in, it does seem like it's going to be all him. Obviously, there's still some worry about his age. Is he going to fall off? But I think he's going to get most of the workload this year. But just looking at what Travis Etienne could be, you have what seems like it's an ascending offense. There's a few names behind him. The rookie Tank Bigsby seems like he'll get some work. But there's nothing really else that's too scary. Dearness Johnson, JaMychal Hasty. So I think ETN's probably the safest of the bunch here. And at this point, I want to go for guys that I think have high floors and high ceilings. And while Mixon, I think, has a pretty high ceiling, I think the floor is a little lower there. So I'm going to go with ETN. Keenan Allen was in consideration at receiver here if I wanted to load up, but going to go ahead and try to get at least one of the kind of more upper echelon players at each of these big three positions here, as I got Mark Andrews. So going to go ETN. Calvin Ridley goes next. Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, Keenan Allen, Alvin Kamara, and Kenneth Walker to round out the third round. TJ Hawkinson, Justin Fields, Aaron Jones, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, and Dameon Pierce ending out this round here, or getting back to me here at the 7th pick of this round. So looking at the best available, we still have all the tight ends, with Hawkinson as the only other one going. So you still have tight end 4 through 4 and beyond available. Quarterbacks, Herbert's interesting here. I mean, I don't think at this stage they can afford to go with an early quarterback and an early tight end in a 14-team league. So quarterback is likely going to be one that I'm going to have to fish for toward the end of the draft. So we're looking at running back and receiver. At running back, we've got Miles Sanders, we've got Dobbins, Madison, Swift. Still a few decent options there. At receiver, DJ Moore, Drake London, DeAndre Hopkins, Judy. So still some solid options there as well. When I look down, in this stage, since I'm only going to be able to take one player here, I'm going to look down to see who else could be available, at my next pick. And receiver-wise, probably looking at like a Godwin, an Ayuk, a Hollywood Brown, versus at running back, really just, Cam Akers, James Conner, maybe DeAndre Swift. Don't think there's going to be as many running backs that I like. Whereas I do think there's going to be some value receivers there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a running back, and I'm going to go ahead and grab Miles Sanders. I think he is a safe option here. Having Tyreek and Mark Andrews, some higher end guys, feel pretty solid with these two running backs, given that they are my 3rd and 4th picks in the draft here at this late. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Miles, get a second running back here, and look to beef up the receiver position here in the next round or two. After I go with Miles, we have a few receivers going off the board with Jerry Jeudy, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Watson, and George Kittle. To you.
Yeah, I'm happy with how this played out. I was watching the ADP, and I was like, there's no way Justin Herbert's going to get to me. And then I looked at the board, and there was only one team between us that didn't have a quarterback. So suddenly I stood a pretty good chance. Taking a look, like Justin Herbert's going to be the pick. I didn't go early tight end. I will go earlier quarterback. I don't know about you. It still feels gross. Like I just can't Like pulling the trigger early in the top 5 rounds on a quarterback or a tight end, I still
Yeah.
hate it, man. It just feels so bad.
Yeah, it's just tough because
Yeah,
you want to be deep at those other positions, and
yeah, like
it doesn't happen when you do it this way.
yeah, you're looking, you're like, well, yeah, I could have DJ Moore and Drake London, or Drake London and Kyle Pitts, or DeAndre Swift, and it's like, no, you're only going to get one of them because you're going to draft a freaking quarterback. So it feels bad, but we know the upside that Herbert has. A lot of people are expecting him to have a pretty big year. So I'm going to lock him in. We'll get the quarterback out of the way, and then we'll make a decision after that for the rest. J.K. Dobbins goes, Matson goes, Drake London goes, and Kyle Pitts. So London was the guy that I was leaning towards. So things are a little bit messier now. The wide receivers, not
I
as
wonder
healthy.
if Herbert could have gotten back, or like a Lawrence. Do you think you would have been happier to get London and Lawrence instead of Herbert and who you end up taking here?
Probably. And that's probably the play, because you had two quarterbacks that you like. And both teams, neither team had a quarterback, so I could have easily gotten burned. Right?
Yeah, it's a risk.
With looking at the ADP, Herbert was definitely going.
Yeah,
just knowing
Pitts was still there though, so you could have still went with the 1Z position.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's a looking. I'm not in love with the wide receivers. Like, it's going to be DJ Moore or it's going to be Brandon Ayuk. Hollywood Brown's there. Lockett's a little bit further down, but those are the two guys that I'm liking the most. I'm looking back at the running back position. Swift, interesting guy. They're all interesting guys to take a shot on. Swift, Akers, Connor. Not really Dalvin Cook. He doesn't have a team yet. Rashad White, Javonte Williams, all very interesting. But the other part that I'm struggling with this year is that we know about the running back dead zone. It's a fact. Like, rounds 3 through 6, some people extend it, whatever. It doesn't have a great hit rate at running backs. And every year people make up great reasons why these running backs are going to be good. And every year they get burned. So it's hard looking at these guys like, yeah, I like Cam Akers. I like Swift. I like Rashad White. But statistically, not a good bet to be placing, given the round you're drafting them in. So overcoming that's also difficult. A little easier for me because I got two running backs already. So I really want another wide receiver. And I think DJ Moore and Brandon Ayuk are very close to me. DJ Moore, less competition, but probably less volume. Ayuk, a lot more competition, but a great offense, obviously. So it is, it's a tough one. I think I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk though, since he's not going to a new team with a new quarterback. Probably a question where if you ask me, and every day I might have a different answer, but today I'm going with Mr. Ayuk to get my second wide receiver. DJ Moore goes immediately after, followed by Godwin, Lawrence, and James Conner.
Yeah, came back to bite me in the butt there because a lot of the receivers I wanted did go, while there's still some running backs available that I like. Swift in particular is someone I've been rising on. He's looked good at camp, and not that the other running backs haven't looked good, but he's kind of stood out that it seems like he is going to be, clearly 1A, and they'll probably rotate, but as long as he's healthy, I think he is going to be the guy to own there. Beyond him, Cam Akers, Michael Pittman, Hollywood, Tyler Lockett. Not really thrilled about the rest of these. I think there is going to be some decent receivers that I won't be thrilled about, but that are still will be there in the next round. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a third running back here. Given that I've waited, I think getting 3 here in kind of these middle rounds before the position, kind of really dries up and there's only a few left, is going to be important. And I do think there's still some receivers that you can get later in the draft. So DeAndre Swift's going to be the pick here to pair him with Miles Sanders and Travis Etienne. So locking in Swift. Dallas Goedert goes next. Seattle Seahawks Tyler Lockett, Cam Akers, Dalvin Cook, Christian Kirk goes, and Rashad White to end the round. Michael Pittman, Mike Williams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Hollywood Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, and Mike Evans. So going up the board here, if we're looking at best available is Waller. We still have some tight ends there with Ingram and Freiermuth. and Joku. So still some solid tight ends here in the 6th round. So if you are on tight end a little bit, you can kind of load up on a few other positions and look to get one of those. There's still some solid options there. We still have Deontay Johnson and Mr. Javonte Williams, who I think he is ascending. I'll be eager to see, kind of where his ADP ends up compared to where it started, because he's looked good. Apparently, he's going to get some work in the preseason at some point too. So he really seems to have healed well. Beyond him, George Pickens, David Montgomery, Jordan Addison, the rookie, and Jahan Dotson. So if we're looking at receivers, there's still a few there, still some veterans a little later too. Running backs, as we said, Javonte Williams, so many Williams there. David Montgomery is available, James Cook. So some solid running backs. For me, I want to get someone I think it's a little safer at the receiver position. That's going to be a Deontay Johnson, someone I know isn't lined for quite a few catches, especially with this being a full PPR league. He's someone that, he definitely did have a down year last year, but he's only 1 year removed from being wide receiver 8. And wide receiver 21 the year before that, wide receiver 30 last year. You got to think that the touchdown regression is coming. He had 0 touchdowns last year compared to 5, 7, and 8 the year prior. So he should be able to bounce back to, I think, even like 6 touchdowns is really going to help him out. All of his stats were down, but you got to think that from what we saw out of Kenny Pickett, while he's maybe not a all-star superstar quarterback, he showed enough that I think he's going to take a step forward, and that's going to help the rest of the offense. So Deontay Johnson, I think, is a good option here to be my second receiver while I've waited, pair him up with Tyreek Hill. And then we can maybe take some more upside shots a little later. But Deontay Johnson off the board. His running mate, George Pickens, next. Javonte Williams, Darren Waller, and James Cook.
I am quite happy with how this played out. James Cook, by ADP, was a little bit of a jump ahead. I don't remember by how many people, but he jumped over David Montgomery. So as I was surveying the land, I'm back balanced, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. So I figured I could walk away with one of each. And looking at the board, David Montgomery seems like a good option at the running back position. And then Jordan Addison is who I want at the wide receiver position. I'm a bit worried about both because Team 1 and Team 2 are doing the opposite over here. Team 1, 4 wide receivers and 1 running back. Team 2, 3 running backs and 1 wide receiver. And it just so happens that Montgomery and Addison are like the next 2 not onesie positions in ADP. So I'm going to give the priority to the running back position. I'm going to go ahead and grab Mr. Montgomery and hope Addison gets to me. If he doesn't, then we'll probably be looking at Dotson. I would assume would be the guy. I'd have to take a look at the people at that point. But we're going to lock in Montgomery, get our 3rd running back here before it just really drops off. Deshaun Watson goes off the board. Evan Ingram goes off the board. That rounds out the 6th. And then Jamal Williams and Jordan Addison right before me. The team with all the running backs grabbed Jordan Addison. What do you know? So that's a shame. We'll take a look here. Running backs, just to run down the position. A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, Rashad Penny, Zach Charbonnet. At wide receiver, we got Dotson, Burks, Tony, Cooks, Quentin Johnson, Michael Thomas, Juju. And at tight end, we got Freiermuth, Njoku, Schultz, Kolkomet, Kincaid, Chigakonkwo, Dolchitz. So plenty of options there. Reading off the names, nothing has really changed in my opinion. I think Dotson's the one I want. We saw good things out of him out of his rookie year. New offensive coordinator, 2nd-year guy. That really just fits the mold of a guy you're looking to draft here. It's 2nd-year guy that showed some flashes in year 1. That's perfect. So I'm going to lock him in there, keep my team nice and balanced. Treylon Burks, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, and Quentin Johnston go off the board. You are up.
All right, so back here to me, a couple receivers in Addison, Dotson, and Johnston off the board. So that would have been some good younger upside players for the team here. But take a look at what we have available. I do still need a quarterback. I don't think this is the time to take him just yet, but considerations got to be coming up as there's still a few teams that don't have one, and I'll be eager to see when teams start doubling up on them. But you have Prescott, Tua, Richardson, Rodgers, Cousins, Geno. So still some solid options, I think, available there. We look at the running back. We have Brian Robinson, Rashad Penny, Zach Charbonnet, P. Ryan Herbert. At wide receiver, we've got Kadarius Toney. We've got Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, and Juju Smith-Schuster. So some decent options there as well, I think. Based on what is available, not really in love with most of the guys here. So what I'm going to do is look into maybe taking a shot here on a Zay Flowers. A couple of rounds in a row, there's a guy that I thought maybe gets back to me and it doesn't. So considering here, taking maybe a Brandon Cooks and seeing if Zay Flowers gets back, but it is a risk because it didn't work out the last couple of times. So we'll go ahead and grab Zay Flowers here. I think there's some decent quarterback options and some other running backs and receivers available a little bit afterwards that I could grab if depending on what comes up next. But I want to get a younger upside option, and given that I've got Deontay already, there's bound to be some other safer, high floor, lower ceiling receivers later. But Zay is kind of the last of the rookies that I think are a really big time player. So after him, Juju Smith-Schuster, Brian Robinson, Dak Prescott goes off the board. So we had a quarterback, Kadarius Toney, Pat Freiermuth, Tua Tagovailoa to end out the 7th round. Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis, Zach Charbonnet, David Njoku, Anthony Richardson, and Rashad Penny off the board. So taking a look here, it is beginning to look pretty bleak. I'm not really thrilled with a lot of the options here. And, Cousins and Rodgers, Geno are decent quarterback options. And looking back, there is one team, amongst you guys that doesn't have a quarterback. But I think I've, got to assume that there'll probably be at least one other that takes a quarterback that doesn't necessarily need one just yet. So quarterback is definitely in consideration here. Beyond that, looking at a Khalil Herbert, Samaje Perine's another good option at running back. Got Elijah Moore, Cortland Sutton available, Devon A-Chain if you want to go with a rookie running back, Lazard at receiver. But I think I'm going to play it safe here, grab my quarterback, and I'm going to grab Rodgers. Obviously there's some risk there, especially with what we saw from Russ last year. But I do think that this is a different situation. I think they have a really good receiving core, good team around him. So I'm willing to take the gamble here, especially in this scenario where we're in the 8th round here of a 14-team league. Just don't want to risk it at this point. So Rodgers is the pick. Michael Thomas next, Odell Beckham, Samaje Perine, and Devon A-Chain.
Yeah, so we're taking a look here. I'm not going to draft a tight end right now. Both teams after me have a tight end. But there are a few teams that do not. Team 7 doesn't. Team 10 doesn't. Team 12 does not either. And I got to get through all of them coming back. So we might look at the tight end position in the 9th round, but let's take a look at the 8th here first. We got Khalil Herbert here. Pretty interested in him. I'd say that you've got some solid options at running back. Damian Harris, McKinnon, Elijah Moore, Tyler Algier. But I have Kinnan or Khalil Herbert not well above, but above all of them. And then at the wide receiver position, Elijah Moore, Cortland Sutton, Jameson Williams, Alan Lazard, Adam Thielen, Rashad Bateman. I like Elijah Moore. I wouldn't mind Sutton. Lazard's okay, but none of these guys are really jumping out at me, unfortunately, because I would like to add more wide receivers. I don't, running back's going to dry up a lot. You know what, Will? I'm gonna jump on a hype train here. Just saw a
There it
name.
is.
We're gonna jump on a hype train. I don't know how I feel. One of the harder parts is making your case for somebody and then trying to ignore all the hype about it throughout the
Yeah.
year. Like Allen Robinson, I was down on Allen Robinson all off season, and then it was like the week before the draft, I started coming around because eventually the hype just kind of beats you down.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I'm going to pick Sky Moore because
There
man,
it
the
is.
hype train, like him and the wider or running back out of Denver, Javonte Williams. Like
Devontae,
both of
yeah.
them, man, their hype trains are off and running big time, man.
Mhm.
So yeah, the thing with Sky Moore, do I really believe it? Maybe. Like, I don't. We saw some stuff out of him as rookie year, but not enough for me to be like, oh yeah, he's going to be a year two breakout. Like Dotson in my last pick, I think we saw more out of Dotson, a fair bit more out of Dotson last year than we did Sky Moore. But I could be picking the number one wide receiver in the Kansas City for Patrick Mahomes in the back into the 8th round. It's not like he's going to be a first round pick next year, I don't think, but he could be quite valuable for fantasy if he hits. So I am going to take my shot there. And then we had Jameson Williams go, Kirk Cousins, Khalil Herbert there at the 901. And disappointed for missing out on that, but maybe we'll take a shot on the Bears running back later. And then Dalton Schultz. We will turn to the tight end position finally, just because I want to strike before these other teams do. Kind of worried about that. We got Cole Kmet here. We got Dalton Kincaid. We got Chiga Okonkwo. We have Dolchitz. Kincaid's another one. I'm kind of coming around. I don't think I could actually pull the trigger on him. There's rookie tight ends, just they never work out. Pitts is the best case scenario where he was whatever, like tight end 7 or something, and Ingram was the same way. But now you're seeing the hype of like, oh, Kincaid's gonna be playing out of the slot. Like he's actually lining up as a wide receiver. He's technically a tight end, but like he's gonna be a wide receiver. And you see your wide receiver rookies break out. But I keep telling myself, they say this about all the tight ends. Hawkinson was different, Pitts was different, and they just aren't. Well, they are. They're just not for fantasy. Like tight end 7's irrelevant. So I am going to take a moonshot. I think Dolchitz is the one that I'm gravitating to now. Love Chig.
All the injuries there.
Yeah, with the injuries there, what we saw last year. Russell Wilson likes the tight end position. I still like Cole Kmet, but Fields not the greatest passer in the world yet. Chig still very high on Chig, but Hopkins coming through really kind of dampers that. I think that team's not going to support that many passing weapons. So I'm going to lock in Mr. Dolchitz, get my tight end before anyone else does. Well, not anyone else, but these other teams too. Team 4 decides to take their second tight end, Dalton Kincaid, to pair with George Kittle. Alan Lazard goes Damian Harris and Cortland Sutton. You're back up.
All right. So back here to me, looking at receiver, we've got Elijah Moore, Rashee Rice, if I want to go at the different Kansas City wide receiver there. And then if I'm looking at running back, McKinnon, I talked about Algier on recent episodes. I do think he's going to have some value, especially, B. Johnson rookie. I do think that they're going to run the ball a lot, and Algier is going to be forgotten because of the rookie being drafted, but I do think that's going to actually help in the long run for him being a value for some people. So for me, though, I want to go with the guy that I do think is going to have some definite utilization here in Jerick McKinnon in Kansas City. Just a good running back that is going to be utilized there, and he's going to be able to fill in for some other running backs. So going to go ahead and lock in Mr. Jerick McKinnon. After him, Chig, Adam Thielen, Elijah Moore, Cole Kmet, Daniel Jones, Jacoby Myers, Geno Smith, Tyler Algier, Jared Goff, Elijah Mitchell, Rashad Bateman, and Russell Wilson. And man, I'm bummed too because I almost wish I would have in the 2 rounds ago just gone with one of the running backs like a Khalil Herbert or Samaje Perine, because there's still some of those quarterbacks there: Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Geno Smith. All I feel like would have been solid in the last round. But alas, that's why you mock and you test it out here. As we move on here to this next round, receiver, a guy that I was looking at there in Rashee Rice, still available here. So another upside shot. You really just kind of want to get a dart throw on that team and Rashee Rice is going to be my pick here in Kansas City. I think it's going to be Travis Kelce, but there's going to have to be some other receivers that are getting utilized. Maybe it's Jerick McKinnon, but I think there's going to be a chance that one of the other receivers is going to be able to step up, and there's a good chance that's Rashee Rice. So we'll go with him. After Rashee, Tyler Boyd, Tyler Higbee, Darnell Mooney, and Rondale Moore.
Okay, fair enough. I am going to go with a combo here, a wide receiver and a running back. I don't think either are going to be that surprising. The wide receiver I'm looking at is Romeo Doubs. He might be a surprise. I don't know. I think I've drafted him a couple of times, but not too consistently. He is the talk of Green Bay as far as like being the number one target for Jordan Love. If Jordan Love does, break out, Green Bay's got a pretty good history of that kind of stuff happening. Could be pretty valuable. Don't know if he's the best fantasy wide receiver there. That's probably Watson. But targets are not a bad thing. And if that leads to some good PPR fantasy production, that's a solid find in the 10th round. So we're going to get our wide receiver there. And then we'll take a look back at the running back position. Bryce Young goes, Sam Laporta, Devin Singletary, and Devonta Foreman. So Foreman's somebody I'm really not taking shots on anymore. Like if I'm taking a shot on Chicago, I want Khalil Herbert or I want Roschon Johnson. Foreman, I don't know.
Out on Foreman.
Yeah. There's no real reason for it. I think I just like Herbert more. And then I'd rather take, if Herbert's not there, I'd rather take a shot on the rookie that they drafted. Not that, nothing against Foreman. He was good last year. But that is where I'm going to take my shot. I'm going to take Roschon Johnson here. That's the one that I don't think that's a big a surprise. Been drafting him plenty if I don't get Khalil Herbert. So probably maybe my last running back shot I'm going to take this draft. But we're going to lock him in there. Mingo goes 1104. Gerald Everett, Kendre Miller, and Tank Bigsby.
All right. So back to me here. Not a ton of running backs that I love here. Raheem Mostert, interesting still here. I think, you're seeing Devon A-Chain go ahead of him. I think probably have Jeff Wilson further down. But I feel like, and I get it, there's always injuries there with him. He is 31 years old. Doesn't have a ton of tread taken from, or has a lot of tread left on the tires because of kind of starting late, with the workloads that he got early on in his career. But it's interesting to see that he is pretty almost left for dead here. 150. So in a 14-team league, he's still sitting here in the 11th round. You got to think this is toward the end of a normal 12-team draft. So he's interesting. Nico Collins at wide receiver, I think, is really interesting as well. Another upside shot there. But there's still, a couple of other longer shots available. Jaylen Warren, another guy here that I think is a good selection. And in Pittsburgh, he proved that he could do it last year. And, with a pretty rough offensive line, and they've got that offensive line better. Obviously, he's still there behind Najee, but I think he'll get some work, and then he's a really good injury handcuff. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Jaylen Warren here. Nico, I think we've seen a lot of hype from him. He's probably another guy that we're talking about. Training camp hype, people have been all over him, but we went over the stats with the rookie quarterbacks. It's just really hard for them to sustain a top receiver target. Obviously, we're late in the draft, so I think it's fine. But he seems to be one of the favorite targets there in Houston early, but there's still a lot of options. So I'm going to go with, I think, a good handcuff running back here that could turn into a really big time piece should he get a bigger workload there. After him, Ezekiel Elliott, Raheem Mostert, DJ Chark, Michael Mayer, Nico Collins, Zay Jones to end out the 11th round. Dawson Knox, Jalen Hyatt, Derek Carr, and Kyler Murray. Michael Gallup and Chase Brown go off the board. So back here to me, a lot of receivers and a lot of quarterbacks and tight ends are top on the board here. So if I'm looking at just the other positions here, I've got Jeff Wilson, Mechie, Jerome Ford, KJ Osborne, Raheed Shaheed. We've got Mr. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's still some decent options there. Jeff Wilson is an interesting one, but given that I do want to get another receiver locked in here, I'm going to go with the Rashid Shaheed. I know, as of some recently, it looks like we've got a groin injury here, luckily to sideline him for most of the preseason games. But it does sound like he is going to be good to go for week 1. So obviously when we're closer to the start of the season, know a little bit more, but he does seem like he's locked into the third receiver there. And if something happens to Michael Thomas again and he isn't able to be healthy like we haven't seen recently, I think he's got a really good shot at being the number 2 there. So given that there's not a ton of receivers really left on the board here, I'm going to go ahead and grab a Rashid Shaheed. After him, Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, Jerome Ford, and Jeff Wilson.
I do, despite my last pick saying I was probably done with running back, I find it hard to avoid Clyde Edwards-Helaire here.
I was thinking about him, but I had just taken Jerick McKinnon, but he is a really good late round shot, I think.
Yeah, like 12th round, he's probably nothing. Like that's probably Pacheco and McKinnon's role now, and maybe he'll mix in here and there. But they're saying Pacheco should be ready for week 1 at this point. But he misses a week. Clyde Edwards, Clyde looks good, and suddenly it's a 3-headed monster, more opportunity. Who knows? But I will stick with what I said and avoid him. I do have 2 wide receivers that I'm looking at. I do like Mechie, but as you had said, rookie quarterbacks, yes, tend to not produce very well. So which makes one of my picks kind of weird because like Alex Pierce is someone I'm looking at, but more of like a deep threat. Like I'm looking for him to like catch a bomb here and there and get some fantasy production that way. He's a thought, but the pick right now for me is Van Jefferson. He was a solid pick here anyway because he's lining up to be the 2 with the Rams, and now Cooper Kupp's hurt. So, all the more opportunity if Kupp ends up missing some time for Mr. Jefferson there. So we're going to lock him in. KJ Osborne goes, Brock Purdy, that rounds out the 12th, and then Chuba Hubbard and Clyde Edwards-Helaire go. So we still do have, we'll take a look at just the wide receivers here. Mechie, Alec Pierce, Jalen Reed, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Justin Ross, Hunter Renfrow, Marvin Mims. Mims becoming more interesting with all the injuries there in Denver. But I think it's going to be, I am going to draft Alec Pierce. It probably wouldn't be what I would do normally. I would probably pull the trigger on Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to.
Late, though. It's a very late
exactly.
option.
Yeah. It's not going to hurt. He's a young player that could break out. You never know. Plus, you don't know. Anthony Richardson should start, but, not all rookie quarterbacks start all the time. Maybe he's sitting for 6 weeks or something. Minshew's a gunslinger. That would be really great for Alec Pierce. But really what it comes down to is I've drafted Hunter Renfrow a lot, so I'm just going to not do it. He would probably be my pick. But we're locking Alex Pierce. Get something different there. Matt Stafford goes, Kareem Hunt, John Mechie, Irv Smith Jr. You're back up.
All right, so looking still at the receiver and running back positions here, and this stage would probably just like to get one of each so I can have a pretty good balance at the positions here, have 6 of each. So if I'm looking at the guys that I like here, Jalen Reed, Donovan Peoples-Jones in Cleveland, Justin Ross would be interesting, but given that I've already drafted Jerick McKinnon and Rashee Rice, don't want to load up too much there. Marvin Mims, someone you called out there that I think we like long term, but I think his short term is opening up a little more. Gus Edwards, I think, is rising, especially here while we don't know what's going on with Dobbins. If Dobbins were to hold out at all, I think Gus Edwards could be a really big-time play early on in the year. So a couple of interesting options. You got Ty Chandler a little bit later down as well. So I think I'm going to go ahead and grab Marvin Mims and see if I can get Gus Edwards on the comeback. I know we're, I think more hype for Greg Dulcich's, boost because of some of the injuries around him. But Marvin Mims, I would not rule him out, especially if Cortland Sutton is not looking like, the Cortland Sutton of old. He does look a little, hindered. I would not be surprised if Marvin Mims gets some play and can step in and become a contributor on that team. So we're going to go ahead and grab Marvin Mims first. Peoples-Jones goes next. Taysom Hill, Mike Gesicki, Jaden Reed, Jawan Johnson, Tajay Spears, Leonard Fournette, Hunter Renfrow, Curtis Samuel, Justin Ross, Samir White, and Gus Edwards right before me, Steve. Wouldn't you know it? Get
Yeah, that's a shame, man.
sniped a pick ahead, too.
Yeah.
And then there's no shot that Marvin Mims was getting back. But it is tough to see. Tough to see. So if I'm looking at the running back position, we've got Patterson. We've got Gainwell, who I love, but already got Swift. I don't know that I want to double up there. Deuce Vaughn, Tajay Spear, Ty Chandler, Pierre Strong. Man, there's really not too many good options there. I think I'm going to go with the best player here and just grab Kenny Gainwell. Don't usually love to go with two running backs on the same team, but given that's my last pick, I do think they are, really two of the three guys that are going to get work, and we'll see if a hot hand comes up. But I just don't really love any of the other running backs, receivers. Isaiah Hodgins maybe, but there's not really a ton there. Khalil Shakir, Puka Nakua, but they're more longer term guys. So I'm going to go with someone that could have an immediate impact, and that's going to be Kenny Gainwell. After him, Hayden Hurst, Paris Campbell, Kenny Pickett, and Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a different shot here than normal. I think here in the past we've taken Isaiah Hodgins, we've taken Wan'Dale Robinson, both as like younger players with New York, second year with the team, blah 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 blah. I'm going to scroll myself down a little bit on the ADP list, though. I'm going to take Tyquan Thornton. I don't think we've drafted him at all this year. Showing some flashes last year, the wide receiver room, the pass catcher room in total for New England's wide open, man. Anyone could step in there. You do have Juju to contend with this year. So, little tougher than in years past, but, Juju is not the Juju that we saw in Pittsburgh many moons ago. I'm going to take a shot on Tyquan Thornton. Late round, if he takes over as the one for that team, it still might not matter. Stars really got to align, but there's a shot there. It's possible. Isaiah Hodgins goes, and then MVS goes with the last pick. A nice, solid dart throw with the last pick of a 14-team draft, that's for sure. But that's going to finish the draft. So as a reminder, I am in the 3 spot. Will is in the 8. I will go ahead and read my team off here first, since my pick is first. At quarterback, we got Justin Herbert. At running back, we got Christian McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson, David Montgomery, Roschon Johnson. At wide receiver, we got DK Metcalf, Brandon Ayuk, Dotson, Sky Moore, Dobbs, Van Jefferson, Alec Pierce, and Tyquan Thornton. And then at tight end, we got Greg Dulcich. Overall, for a 14-team league, I like this team. Not the strongest, I'm missing that upper tier wide receiver, I think, or like 2 Metcalf kind of players. So that kind of hurts. I do wish I did grab CEH, really. Like, I kind of, given it's such a deep league, having 5 running backs would be nice instead of just 4. But, let's be honest, the roll of the dice on CEH is not very high odds. So I'm really not missing out on much. It just feels a little light having 4 running backs. But, overall, I'm happy with the quarterback and the tight end position. I'm real happy with the running back starters. Wide receivers, I think, are good enough to get it done. Maybe even pretty elite if I get a breakout there. So overall, for a 14-team league, I'm pretty happy with what I got. Let's hear your team. Well,
yeah, I think it just reiterates too that, man, I feel like I just usually want to go late tight end quarterback, but it almost makes me want to do it even more in these leagues because it's just so important to have that depth. So run through my team here. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Travis Etienne, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Jerick McKinnon, Jalen Warren, and Kenny Gainwell at running back. Tyreek Hill, Deontay Johnson, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Rashid Shaheed, and Marvin Mims at wide receiver. And Mark Andrews at tight end. So, got some pretty solid top-end options, but I got, I think I like my running back depth. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to have three guys that can be playable. It's the receiver that I've got a lot of young options beyond Deontay Johnson. So for my wide receiver, three flex options, really going to need one or two of these young guys to step up. So, Mark Andrews, well, it's great to have him, taking a Garrett Wilson or Jalen Waddle there to just really solidify and be able to go with Dulcich or Chig in like the 9th or 10th round, I think would just feel better.
Can I pitch a scenario for you here?
Run it at me.
I'm looking at your 5th and 6th round pick. You picked Swift and Deontay Johnson. Would you rather have Swift and Johnson, or would you rather have, say, Tyler Lockett and Javonte Williams?
That's interesting because I do think, while people are fading Lockett, I do think he is going to be solid this year. I probably would rather have that, yeah. I do like Javonte, and I think he's right there with Swift, but probably has a chance to be, has a higher upside, really. While the Eagles have a great team, we know what Javonte is. If he's healthy, I think he is going to be really good. And Lockett, I think, it's tough. I think him and Deontay are close. But
how about
I think
Kirk?
Lockett
Does Kirk change anything if it's Kirk and Javonte Williams?
No. I think that whole kind of splattering of those guys, Mike Williams, Pittman, I'm kind of all of them are kind of in the same tier for me. Like I would have taken any of them that felt at 6'7". Like I was really hoping DJ Moore, Ayuk, Godwin, one of them was going to fall back to me there after I took Sanders, and then I had to take Swift.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I missed a bit of a tier break, it seemed.
Yeah. It happens. Well, it's fun to look back and, play that. Would you rather have this? Or
yeah.
That? It's often difficult because you're picking, people around the same ADP, like they have similar values half the time. Mm-hmm. It's a fun exercise to do.
Sure. It sure is.
But yeah, that is going to wrap up the draft. Tune in next week. We'll have a 12-teamer for you. Get back to some of the normal leagues here. And until then, folks, trust your board.